It's been 1 week since Israel launched a missile attack on Iran in an attempt to stop it from gaining a nuclear weapon. Now, 2 days later, Iran responded with attacks on Israel, and the two have traded missile barrages since. Now, the U.S. is weighing whether or not to join the fight, saying all options are on the table. For more on the conflict and its impact on the Middle East, we're joined by Feisal Istrabadi, a former ambassador of Iraq and founding director of IU Center for the Study of the Middle East. Welcome to the show.
It's my
Thanks
pleasure.
for being
Thank
here.
you.
So the White House keeps talking about negotiating peace while threatening war. Can you have both of those? What's the message they're trying to send to Iran?
Yes, of course, you can have both. The problem is that from the Iranian perspective, when Israel launched these attacks, it was more or less 2 or 3 days away from negotiating with the United States, which had been ongoing. It was supposed to be the 6th session of those negotiations. So it begins to look like the negotiations and even scheduling negotiating sessions is just a cover for military action. That changes the dynamic away from a negotiated solution, it would seem to me.
So let's say if the U.S. becomes directly involved militarily in the conflict, how would Iran respond?
Well, we're probably, in the case that the Iranian regime decided that game was over, this was it. It has a number of options. It could, for instance, close the Straits of Hormuz, through which 20% or so of the world's oil flows. It could also effectively close the routes through the Red Sea. That could have a disastrous impact on world oil prices and on Western and the international economy. And it could also lash out at its neighbors, perhaps targeting their energy infrastructure as well. So if the U.S. gives the regime no options, then it's sort of non-nuclear, nuclear option is to attempt to destroy the economy of the Western world and of regional states.
So what happens in Iran, let's say, if the Khamenei government fails?
Well, there are a number of different things that could happen. There's a difference between the regime failing and the state collapsing. If it's and it is not clear to me that there is an American strategy for distinguishing between the two. If you get to a point where the Iranian state no longer functions, so that an order given in Tehran has no bearing outside, then I have Pakistan on one border with a military intelligence service that supports radical extremists, and the Taliban in Afghanistan on another border. And at that point, I think it becomes Katie bar the door, which will be bad news indeed for the United States and for the Arab states of the Gulf in particular. It will be America's problem to resolve at that moment.
Now, would we be here if President Trump, had not withdrawn the U.S. from the nuclear deal with Iran that was back in 2015?
Yes, the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. No, is the short answer. Iran is now much closer to a nuclear weapon than it was in 2018 when the U.S. withdrew, although the Prime Minister of Israel has been saying for 30 years that Iran is 6 months to a year away from a nuclear weapon. But no, absolutely, we would not be here.
Do you feel like there's any hope for peace in the Middle East?
Not the way it's going now. No, I think that we're headed in the wrong direction generally in the Middle East. We have, I think, an administration that has no particular strategy for the Middle East. And I think we are entering a very dangerous period in a dangerous part of the world to begin with.
We know you're very busy. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.